Hello, and welcome to the Transplex 2011 On-Demand session. Today's presentation is an introduction to access management. The speaker is Mr. Gary Socolow, Senior Transportation Planner with the Florida Department of Transportation in Tallahassee, Florida. He has over 30 years of experience in the field of transportation planning, over 20 of which has been with the department. Mr. Socolow is a national expert in access management and has expertise in growth management and trip generation. He has managed and co-authored a number of guides, such as the Transportation Impact Handbook, Median Handbook and Driveway Information Guide, and PARC Sustainable Interurban Roads for Tomorrow. He has a master's degree in urban and regional planning from Florida State University. Mr. Socolow.
Thank you, Regina. I'd like to talk today a bit about access management to give everyone an introduction to the concept of access management. The definition of access management is the planning and location of driveways, medians, median openings and the design of median openings, as well as the design and spacing of interchanges. I currently am working on the latest access management manual being put out by the Transportation Research Board, and it should be out within 2 years. We are further refining the definition of access management to include access for pedestrians and transit vehicles. So we are now looking at access management on more than just the concept of the automobile. As we go through the presentation today, you will see an occasional curled page at the bottom left with a page number in it. What this is a reference to a 12-page brochure which we created to help explain the benefits of access management, especially to businesses and local elected officials. So we are in the midst of getting these printed up. If you need copies, we can get you an Acrobat copy of it, and fairly soon we should have a few thousand copies to be able to send to you as needed. When you open the brochure up, you'll see what we tried to do was speak directly to the business person, and it's done in a question and answer format, and each page opens with a question, and we hope that we answer it. And one of my favorite is, does FDOT just think this stuff up? And after 20 years of working in access management, we do know that a lot of people do not understand the value of access management, and so therefore we have been developing materials to try to help explain it. Access management is a lot more than just controlling the driveways on arterials. In order to make access management work, it is absolutely necessary to have a support system that helps people get to driveways and to access the arterial roads in a very orderly and safe fashion. In this instance, what we see is a small business which has a driveway serving it fairly directly, but you'll see that there is no ability for these customers to turn left in or left out. What the connectivity does is encourages the customers and employees of this shopping center to go to a signalized intersection where the left turns especially will be made safely. So access management does not work unless the connectivity and the support road system and the support distribution system on the other side of the right-of-way, the part not owned or controlled by the Florida Department of Transportation, it is critical to have that support system developed. If you look at this picture, you will see a number of single-family homes off of a neighborhood street. And each of these homes does have a driveway. You will notice that the arterial street here on this portion has no direct driveways to the homes on the other side of the right-of-way line. This shows the concept that is at the base of access management, that the design of the access is dependent on the type of business or the type of property that it connects to and the type of road. You would not design the accesses to these houses on the top of the picture in the same way that you would design driveways serving businesses along the major arterial. This is a diagram that shows that all roads have a balance between its function to serve through traffic and access to property. The classifications of roadways generally goes from our freeways, the interstates, all the way down to local roads, the roads that lead up to your house. Within the Florida Department of Transportation, we have 7 access management classes. Class 1, which are the interstates, classes 2 through 7, which you can see have a balance of through traffic movement and access to property. For instance, our arterial roadways maintained by Florida DOT have a fairly small function to serve access and a very large function to serve commerce and through traffic movement. Before we go any further, I'd like to talk about the access management standards and how they really work in reality. This is a table showing the standards found in our Rule 14-97, and what you have here is Class 2, which is the most restrictive, to Class 7, the least restrictive. We do not have Class 1 on here because, if you remember from the previous slide, Class 1 are freeways. And freeway access management is handled by the spacing of interchanges, which we will not talk about here. So each of the access management classes found in our Rule 14-97 has certain features. It has what sort of median and has the spacing of median openings. 2 kinds of median openings. One where all movements are allowed, that's called the full median opening, or the directional median opening, where it's usually a left turn into property. We also have connection or driveway spacing standards that is divided by the posted speed limit, our higher speed roadways, which are more than 45 miles an hour posted speed, and those of 45 miles per hour or less. Early on, we found that we needed to work with access management in a realistic fashion, and that the areas that are generally developing or undeveloped currently are the ones where we can get the highest levels of access standards. Those areas that are already developed are areas which we will try to get the best standards, but know that we are limited by the fact that much of the development has already taken place. The most common of the classes in Florida is the Class 5, and as an example, Class 5 has a requirement for a restrictive median. That means not a two-way left turn lane, and full median openings that are 2,640 feet from each other, and if it is less than 45 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour or less, it is 1,320 feet. Directional median openings are 660 feet, and we will show you how to measure those shortly. And connection spacing or driveway spacing, if it is more than 45 miles an hour, it is 440 feet. If it is 45 miles an hour or less, it is 245 feet. We have these standards for every one of these classes 2 through 7. The way we measure the spacing of driveways is through measuring edge to edge. So it is measured in this fashion. Now, you saw the standards, and the question always comes up, well, if my property is shorter than those standards, will I get a driveway? And the basic, simple answer is yes. Every property owner, and this is in law, will be given an access to their property unless it would jeopardize the safety of the traveling public. And this would be any sort of hazard which any of our professionals feel would be not prudent to allow. And in that case, we would do our best to find other ways to provide reasonable access to that property. We should also mention at this time, even though property owners have a right to reasonable access to their property, our law also states that the department has ultimate authority to restrict the operational characteristics of any means of access. That means that a person or a property has no automatic right to left turns in and left turns out. So keep that in mind, that left turns are not a right. This is a sample of a gas station, and it is on a Class 5 arterial roadway in Florida. And you can see here that the Class 5 standards are 245 feet, and that none of the spacing that is shown here meet the standards. However, the design of the access to the shopping center was done to the best of the ability of the designers of the shopping center and the permitting staff. In another gas station, you can see here it does not meet the 440 feet standards. However, I think most people could take a look at this property and say this is probably the best access management that we could ever design on this roadway. You'll notice that there is a right turn and in and right turn out on the major street. There is full access on the side street and a signalized intersection at this location to help the customers and delivery trucks and employees make safe left turns and access out of the property. So how can we get really good access management? And really, one of the only ways we can assure meeting our standards, or maybe even doing better than our standards, is by having a unified development plan. You have an example right here where you can see the spacing that exists are much greater than the ones from the pictures we saw before. And this was done either by having the same owner for this piece of property or the same developer, or these could actually be separate properties, but the local government, through their regulations and site plan review, were able to reach understandings with 3 separate property owners to allow cross-access. Once again, the way we can get good access management is by having a good support and control system on the private side of our right-of-way. The way we measure median opening spacing is from the center of the opening to the next center of the opening. Now, measuring the spacing between a major opening and a directional is a little trickier. Most directional openings come in pairs, allowing left turns into property on one side and left turns into property on the other side. So what we say is that you measure from the center of this pork chop island to the center of the intersection. In real life, this is a picture of really the same thing. This is the pork chop island to this Unified Development Plan in Fort Myers. And you can see it is over 1,000 feet to this intersection. So once again, a Unified Development Plan can assure much better access management. Now, why do we care about access management? And no, we don't just make this up. The main purpose for access management is safety. We have shown over and over again in research that good access management leads to less crashes. How do we do it? Well, essentially, we reduce crashes by restricting the amount of conflict points. As you can see, each of the circles in these pictures shows a location where vehicles can collide. The less opportunity for collision usually means there will be less crashes. Safety is the primary reason for good access management. This is another way of showing the number of conflict points in an unrestricted driveway. And by having restrictive medians, you can see the number of conflict points is greatly reduced. Something that you should keep in mind is that the left turn out, unsignalized, onto an arterial is the most hazardous maneuver you can make. And the reason is right-angle collisions. Right-angle collisions tend to be the most dangerous and lead to the most injuries and deaths on arterial roadways. And the reason for that is the fact that even in today's vehicles, the amount of cushioning on the sides is not the same as the amount of crunch zone that you have from a collision in the front or a collision in the back. This is pretty clear that the left turn driver in this situation Thankfully, these are crash test dummies. The left-turn driver will have a much harder time walking away or leaving this crash without their life being changed forever. This is a directional median opening in the Panhandle of Florida. Notice the way it's designed. It has concrete barriers here to prevent or to discourage wrong-way movement, and it is wide enough to allow this sort of channelization of turning movements. Well, what's another advantage of a directional median opening? When you have a full median opening, it was designed to handle just a few cars at a time. Similar to that. What happens in reality is at these unsignalized full openings, you have a lot of vehicles jockeying for position, and all the good work that the designers did on sight distance is thrown away. These are a few shots of a busy location in Tampa. This is one median opening, and you can see, and this is just a few seconds, all of these vehicles that have been put into this small location, their sight distance is blocked, people are being impatient and with a tendency to make unsafe maneuvers. But it's not just the automobile safety that we're interested in. We are also interested in the pedestrian. The pedestrian is the most vulnerable of all of our roadway users, and good access management is one of the best ways to help the pedestrian. Each driveway increases pedestrian conflict. In addition to that, where there is no restrictive median, and we all know locations like this, people take their lives into their hands to cross the street, and they should be crossing at signals, but you also know that sometimes signals are half a mile apart from each other, and we really can't expect people to walk that 1 mile back and forth in order to get to the crossing. And so you see a lot of this kind of unsafe maneuvers, and these lead to deaths. In a very recent article in the New York Times, it found Florida to be the most dangerous place for pedestrians. You can argue about the methods that were used to come up with this. However, you cannot dispute the fact that we have a lot of roadways where there are no medians and very poor pedestrian facilities where people then take lots of risks to get across the street. Access management can help them. In order to sell the concept of putting a restrictive median into this roadway called Appalachia Parkway in Tallahassee, the traffic engineer used the cameras to monitor the traffic to show the City Council just how dangerous this portion of roadway was. Thankfully, they did a good job and put in a restrictive median. This is very close to where that picture was taken, just from another angle. So what is good access management, and what is good access to a property? Well, back in the old days, the definition of good access was, hey, a car can come into my property any place. And this is an old picture off of US 90 in Live Oak, and you can see, yes, this gas station had good access for the time. We also see lots of places currently that have wide open, undefined driveways, and this is also an example of poor access because there's no positive guidance for the drivers leaving or coming onto the site. Almost as bad are the properties that have so many driveways that it's a difficult choice to make which one to enter or to leave. Earlier we talked about unified development plans, so I figured I'd give a few other examples of unified development plans. These are in Southwest Florida, and you'll notice this one piece of property is being served by one driveway on the main road and a few other driveways on the backage, I'll call it the backage road, but what we talked about is that support system. This is another example of a unified development plan where there are no driveways on the major roadway. However, 3 well-designed access points off of the road that has been designed to go to the back of these properties, leaving State Road 78, Pine Island Road, to serve through traffic movement more safely. Also on Pine Island Road is a unified development plan that shows they were able to get 1,000 feet between the major road and the driveway here, and also you can see that this vacant property, when it develops, will not have driveways to Pine Island or to Nicholas Parkway, but will have all of its access done internally. Again, unified development plans can assure the best access management. Okay, this is another example of multiple properties being served by a very limited number of driveways, but good access in the back. Something that business owners should think of also is the fact that poor access design is unsafe and frustrating for their own customers. The Urban Land Institute, which are the spokespeople for the community and shopping center developers, in their handbooks for shopping center development, really warn that poorly designed access points can be a negative impact on the shopping center and on business. If you think about the old gas station that we saw a few slides back, you could see that people could get in and out, but the amount of traffic on US 90 at that time was pretty light. Today, we have a lot more congestion spread out over a lot more hours of the day, and those queues and the traffic on the roadways themselves are the factors that cause poor accessibility to properties. So this picture of one site at two different times of day shows that at some point that the customers can get in and out, but with the evening traffic, it is a completely different story. The same could be said if this was the traffic at the time that the shopping center was developed, and this could be the traffic 5 years after the development. What was once good access may, in just a few years, be very poor access for the customer and the business. This is what happens when you put a driveway too close to an intersection. We've all seen this, where the person wants to get to the left turn lane to make a turn at the signal and then works their way across, blocking traffic. This is a corner property that has two driveways, and what I'd like to do is to show some of the problems that you see inherent in the placement of these driveways. Remember, it's what we said before. It's the conditions around the driveway and not the lack of driveways that causes access problems. In this case, a driver exiting this driveway may be tempted to cross the right turn lanes all the way over into the left turn lane across the roadway. Their sight distance and judgment of vehicles in at least 4 lanes in one direction and maybe 6 lanes in one direction adds to the danger of that movement. In the case of the driveway to the north here, this person, in order to make a right-hand turn, since they can't turn left out of this driveway, needs to look not just to the left a bit, but has to look all the way behind them to see the traffic approaching, to make sure that they have the safest gap to make that right turn movement. So what we try to show business owners is that good access management is good for their customer and good for their business. Customers, when they are asked about roadways that have been upgraded to good access management, a vast majority of them were in favor of the projects after the work had been done. As we know, access management causes conflict. And in this way, access management is a lot more than just traffic engineering, transportation planning. A lot of it is knowing how to work with people. What we do is encourage public workshops and working directly with neighbors and business owners to not only tell them the benefits of good access management, but also to listen to them and to change plans if necessary. Many times they know their area better than we do and know the type of trucks that may be coming in for delivery, and we have changed our plans based on this robust public input. Many businesses feel that access management or the placement of a median opening will hurt their businesses. The vast majority of research on this over the last 20 to 30 years shows that it is not the case. Matter of fact, a study done on 5 corridors in the Orlando area that had access management retrofit against 5 other corridors in Central Florida that were similar but that did not undergo access management, found that businesses came and went at no higher rate on those roadways that had the new access management, that their businesses come in and businesses fail all over. And the reason that they fail is a very complex reason. It could be more competition, it could be management, it could be the services that they offer. However, when a comparison was made between access management retrofitted corridors and those with poor access management, we found that businesses failed at no higher rate on the access management roadway. In order to make restrictive medians and access management work, U-turns are generally increased along our roadways. And at public meetings, we find that there are a lot of comments about U-turns. You will hear people say, most of the people in my city are senior citizens and they cannot make U-turns. They're uncomfortable with that. And because of this, we want to explain the advantages of what we're going to call the indirect left turn, which is the U-turn. This automobile wants to go left. If you remember a number of slides ago, we show the danger of the left-turning vehicle due to the right-angle collision and the fact that they have to negotiate through a number of lanes. And that is really the movement that that car wants to have. But because we have directional median opening, that vehicle must turn right. And you see the cone of vision here for them, and that cone of vision is a fairly narrow one. So this is the cone of vision that they need to look at to see when they can turn right and then weave across 1 or 2 lanes. When they get to the next median opening, they make a U-turn. In order to negotiate that U-turn, this is the cone of vision that is required. Now, take that same driver where there's a 2-way left turn lane, and that driver has to look over the entire area before making a safe maneuver. And this is information overload, which is shown to really affect safety and cause more crashes. And if you look at the area that needs to be viewed in order to make a left turn out, you will see that the head movement is a lot more severe. Still, we had a lot of people, including traffic engineers, tell us, well, the safety benefits you're telling us are because you have moved the problem down the road. So the University of South Florida, working for us, did an analysis of the direct left turn versus the right turn followed by the U-turn, the indirect left. So you see that the red ball did travel a much greater distance than the green ball. So 8 corridors within the Tampa Bay area had this treatment, and then the videos were shot of over 400 hours. Excuse me, over 300 hours with 8 corridors in the Tampa Bay area. And what they looked at in those videos, in those hours of all of those movements, which looked at the right turn vehicle and their complete maneuver down the road, making a U-turn and getting back to the area of the left turn where they wanted to go, they rated and counted the number of evasive maneuvers. These are called conflicts. This is a conflict analysis. When they added up all of the evasive maneuvers per 1,000 involved vehicles, those vehicles making direct left-hand turns had 30 evasive maneuvers per 1,000 vehicles, and the right turn followed by the U-turn, even though they traveled a greater distance and had to weave across traffic in order to make that U-turn, had a significantly less number of evasive maneuvers, 19 per 1,000. In addition, the researchers looked at the actual crash experience of other locations similar to that around the state and found that in these locations that the total crash reduction of having people turn right and make a U-turn was nearly 20%. However, the injury fatality crash rate was almost 30% down. Again, think about that right turn, not right turn, but the right angle collision and the fact that it leads to more injuries than side swipes or rear-end collisions. Another study that was done nationally showed the very same result, that U-turns are safe and effective. However, it is important that you design U-turns in such a way that it really helps. Just making U-turns anywhere is not the right thing. You really need to, as a professional, figure out where those U-turns are going to be made and make sure that there is space or time or both for them to make safe U-turns. US 27, north of Ocala in Marion County, recently went through a widening and a retrofit of access management features along the roadway. And you will see areas that have been used to assist in making U-turns. This is one of them. It's just an isolated bulb out. In Jacksonville, this is a very urbanized area, and this restrictive median was put in, and shortly thereafter they found that they needed to make extra space for the U-turn. This is a picture with another area for bulbing out. Nationally and in some other places, they call it a loon. This is one interesting treatment that we found in Sarasota. Those things in the middle are newspaper stands. Interchange areas are an extremely important area for good access management. Interchanges are major transportation investments, and they serve the public, they serve commerce, they serve travelers and local governments greatly. Now take a look at this one off-ramp and how close that driveway is. One common experience happens when the driveway is too close is conflicting vehicles of people wanting to go in and those people not wanting to go into that driveway. Another common experience is the person leaving the corner property and wanting to make a U-turn. However, people going off of the off-ramp from a freeway have a tendency to be driving fairly fast, and then this is another major conflict. This is an interchange area that has a number of issues, some good, some bad. Let's take a look at one of them. In this, there is a driveway that is on the on-ramp. This is obviously not good access management. I don't think you'll see many of these happen today. This happens to be a very old gas station site. You'll see that that is what the same driveway looks like from a different angle. You will also notice that the properties next to it all have individual driveways and that there is no connection. And this is the other view of that same area. Now, in the southeast corner, you'll see that there is a unified driveway that serves more than one property. This is a gas station and a convenience market that was given a right turn in only, very close to the off-ramp. And this is the ground level view. And you can see that that driveway serves multiple properties. A very severe example of poor access management at an interchange area. It takes place off of I-4 on Lee Road in the Orlando area. You can see this is a major off-ramp, and this is a driveway to a Denny's restaurant. Also notice this traffic signal. All of this happening in a very short distance. Now the standards for directional median opening here is 1,320 feet, and for driveways 440 feet. But in reality what we have is 220 feet from the off-ramp to the signal and only 40 feet to the Denny's driveway. An example of really good access management and design practices can be found on the Suncoast Parkway, State Road 54, where department and turnpike designers purchased extra land along the side street, along the arterial, to assure that in the future there wouldn't be driveways and major intersections that close to the on and off ramps. That same area today is in front of you here, and you can see that it has worked very well and that there is plenty of development. Again, notice to have a good access management, it is necessary to have a unified site plan where access is part of the design, and you can see that here. In fact, some businesses have adapted to having interchange locations that are not absolutely direct. I think we all know that the Cracker Barrel locations, we usually have to travel a fairly long distance to get to the Cracker Barrel, but we still, because we like Cracker Barrel, want to go there. Now, since a lot of what we talked about is trying to convince businesses that access management is not bad for them, but is actually good for them, one way to work with the local businesses in any area where you are doing an access management program is to ask them to think about the corridors that have poor access management versus those that have good access management. And which ones do they think will have the most vibrant businesses? Well, here's a typical area with bad access management, no median, no driveway definition, lots of asphalt. It's pedestrian hostile. This is US 192 in Kissimmee. This is what it used to look like. After major improvements, and a lot of them access management related, this is what it looks like today. You can see it handles lots of traffic. It's aesthetically more pleasing, and it is safer. So good access management gives you all of these things: safety, aesthetics, efficiency. If done right, it's also pedestrian and transit friendly, like we can see on US 192 in Kissimmee. If you want to know more about access management, come to our website. It's dot.state.fl.us. And you can see the rest of it down here. And you will find that we have a lot of the information we talked about, the brochure, the handbooks, and links to other important access management websites. We talked about the median handbook and the driveway handbook and the brochure, but we also have links to the applications for access management. In addition to the 12-page brochure which we produced, we also have brochures in Spanish and Haitian Creole. I'd like to thank you for taking the time with me today to go over the concepts of access management. As I said earlier, we're not and we did not discuss everything about access management. So if you have any questions about this presentation or other issues about access management, please feel free to contact me at the email address you see here.